Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of FSU Coach Live. Hope you're enjoying these discussions wherever you're watching or listening from. My name is Tim Baghurst and joined by Dylan Bennett for this episode. Dylan, thank you so much for joining me. Just give us a little bit of background about how you ended up where you are today as a head men's and women's coach of track and field.
Sure. I actually started here as an assistant coach back in 2019, shortly after I graduated my undergraduate degree. I was here as an assistant, and then COVID-19 hit. And I left the university to go pursue my head coaching dream. I was a head coach at the high school level for a season. And then I moved on to NCAA Division II, Westchester University. And then from there, I moved to NCAA Division I, Lehigh University. And in March of last year, I was offered the head coaching position back here at Gwinnett Mercy University. And it's a great opportunity. I'm very excited to be back here with the vision that the athletic department has and the university has for us as a whole. It's a very exciting time to be here.
It sounds like you kind of went straight from undergrad into coach here, coach there, and now all of a sudden you're head coach. That's a quick turnaround. And a lot of head coaches would say you need a lot of good experience as assistant coach before you become a head coach. What's it been like for you adjusting from one program to another very quickly and now you're in charge?
It's had its challenges for sure. There's a difference in standards recruiting wise for each division level. There's a standard as far as athletic performance. There's standard for work hours. There's standards for everything. But the support system that I have at home, the support system I've had at each university has really kind of helped me grow and expand my knowledge at each level. And it's made the transition a little bit easier. Obviously, nothing is ever easy in the coaching world. But having that kind of support from behind has really, really pushed me to this level at this point.
Mm. Division III. I've worked at Division II. I know how much of a struggle it was to find funding, to get paid, to recruit athletes. Division III is one could argue even more difficult, given that you don't have the scholarships to throw around, et cetera. What's it been like recruiting to Division III?
It certainly has its challenges. In the size of the university is mostly where you see a challenge.
Can I ask how big your university is?
Sure. So we have about around 1,100 undergraduate students here and around 400 graduate students. And those graduate students we see mostly are your adult in education students. So people that are already working their way up in mid-tier management, going back to school to get that MBA type degree. So you don't really see a whole lot of graduate students outside of that. But the size of the university makes it, I don't want to say difficult, but students now and student athletes now specifically like to see that flashy Division I. They want to see that big school that gets that national attention from ESPN on College Game Day every week. And you just don't get that kind of experience at Division III, unfortunately. But the thing you can rely on recruiting wise is also the size of the university. Students now, especially post-COVID, that I've seen recruiting wise, like to have that smaller, more intimate relationship between their coaches, their support staff in the classroom, administration. So that kind of helps combat the challenge. And also, national prominence. We don't get the same exposure as an LSU or Florida State. So you really rely on a lot of local talent. And where we're based out of makes it a little bit easier for us because we are a university that's known for its nursing program, and we're starting to become a little bit more known for our education program. And the high schools around us, we have around 40 high schools within an hour and a half of our campus. So that kind of exposure helps out. But if our school was in the middle of Iowa and your two closest high schools are about an hour away and you have a little bit more space between, it would definitely see a little bit of a different challenge.
So what is it like recruiting for you? What does your recruiting schedule look like? How do you find your athletes to get them into your program?
The recruiting schedule honestly is never ending. There's days where I wake up and there's emails from recruits who are replying, days, weeks, hours later. to an email that I've sent out. A lot of what we do recruiting wise, we rely on our relationships with local coaches. I'm generally from this area, so I have a lot of connections to the high school programs. Also, being a former high school head coach kind of helps in that sense. Using your scouting tools, there's definitely scouting websites out there that have helped in that process as far as looking up numbers directly. Um, there's Mile Split, but Mile Split shows it has great numbers, great details, and it shows every race that's timed on an electronic system. But not every high school can afford to have an electronic system. Not every high school can afford to go to meets that have electronic systems. So there's certain people that kind of fall through the cracks in that sense, and that's where you rely on those connections that you have.
How do you balance recruiting, recognizing that, and I say this with the utmost respect, truly talented athletes aren't coming to your university. They're going to go to as you alluded to, the FSUs, where they're going to get the exposure, national championships, things like that. How do you balance recruiting somebody who has talent, who might come to your university, but might also go to a higher level university as well? I would see it difficult to juggle how much time and effort you invest in those athletes.
Sure. And that's something that we're also trying to figure out. There's certain parts and there's certain athletes, obviously you want to focus a lot of your time and attention on. And that, it's a little bit of luck. But we try to focus and give as much attention to those athletes that we can. But our main focus is those athletes that also aren't getting that kind of attention and using the connections that we have at the high school level and whatnot. So as much as I want to have that big fish, unfortunately, most times I will do as much as I can to talk to them, but at certain times I know when I have to cut my losses and focus, on getting 3 or 4 athletes that might not have the NCAA Division I talent, but 3 or 4 athletes that are going to give me NCAA Division I work ethic. And hopefully that work ethic transitions into something else for us down the road. And that's more so where I find myself in kind of, hey, maybe we need to cut our losses here. Talent isn't essentially everything at this level. If we have work ethic and dedication, then that's what we would also like to focus on.
That's a good thought. I like that thought about the Division I work ethic. Recognizing I know some D1 athletes who maybe don't have the work ethic they should, but we won't go there. Talk a little bit about being a track and field coach, because as I alluded to, I've worked in D1, D2, and have known track and field coaches who maybe struggle for respect, maybe struggle for legitimacy, for visibility, whereby, I mean, the university I was at, they cut their track and field program, even though the track and field was one of the most successful programs in athletics, because it was a quote unquote drain on resources.
Sure.
How does that work where you are, and how do you combat that?
So for us, fortunately, and a lot of things you'll see at the Division I level is not, you're not getting a lot of revenue essentially from games. Football, basketball, whatever. You may generate some revenue. A lot of what the revenue and what a university looks for at the Division III level, especially out of track and field, is how many numbers can you bring in. We're essentially, another step as an admissions counselor. We're the ones going out, hitting the ground, recruiting out in the open, and that's how we kind of benefit our university and kind of show, hey, this is why you should have a program, because we're going to continue to go out and bring students here and show them the strengths of the university, and then also give them the opportunity to compete at the next level, which is not something that's offered a whole lot to a majority of student athletes. So that's kind of where we make our stake and say, hey, this is how we benefit the university.
So numbers in your program is really important to the university and gives you a little bit of maybe negotiating power.
A little bit, yes. And I mean, numbers for us also, make us more competitive. Track and field, as a lot of coaches will know, is a depth sport. If you don't have the depth to, plug somebody into a relay, or to, have that third man to kick somebody's spot out in a conference championship and take those points, you're going to have a tough time. And something that we've seen a lot, we don't have a lot of depth right now. But last year when I first started here, I have a student athlete here who has won the 100, the 200, and the 400, and he works his butt off, but he's scoring 10 points in each event because he's getting first place. Now, a rival school is getting second, third, and fourth, and now combined, they're scoring 18 points. So that first place finish looks really nice, and he gets the nice shiny medal, but he's been outscored because there's 3 people behind him from one school. And that's kind of where, that depth and having more student athletes on your roster to compete and work with each other and train kind of comes into play, and why we want to have as much depth as we can.
I want to ask maybe a harder question, and no obligation to answer it, but a lot of coaches in college sports are not well paid. And you're smiling. We know that salaries tend to go to the sports that generate tickets, right? That sell tickets, et cetera. And for many, coaching college, especially D2, D3, is almost a part-time position. Do you have other employment or other responsibilities at the university that supplement your income, or is this is my salary as a track and field coach?
No, so I do have a secondary duty here that does not take up a lot of time. There's days where I get a little bit frustrated with it.
What is it? I'm just curious.
I'm the coordinator of our stadium facilities.
Okay.
So I coordinate, the essential turf time is what we call it, when people are allowed to practice on the turf, when outside vendors are able to come and use our facilities. And that's another way you generate revenue at this level, is you rent out your facilities to outside parties. And then just overall, making sure the maintenance of the stadium is upkept. And it doesn't take up a lot of time. I'm very fortunate the university has given me a very fair salary. Now, at the other places I've worked at, that it's maybe different. Division II, I was strictly a track coach. Division I, I'm strictly a track coach. High school level is a little different. I was one of the only coaches in the department that didn't work at the school. I wasn't a teacher. I didn't work anywhere in the building. So just about every coach at that particular school had worked in the building and was coaching to help supplement their pay. So it's different at every level. But I mean, as far as where I'm at now, that job takes up maybe 5 minutes a day. So I'm very fortunate in that light, but I know there are other universities where it takes up a lot more time, and they do view certain programs as part-time coaches. But again, I'm very fortunate to have, this is my full-time position. I get paid very, very well. And then I take 5 minutes out of my day to make sure the stadium, we're not having practices overlapping.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back in just over a minute as we talk to Dylan Bennett. The mission of FSU Coach is to prepare and equip the next generation of coaches and sports professionals with best practices and current research to enable them to pursue excellence. We have 2 academic programs, the online graduate certificate, which is 4 classes, and also a 10-class master's in athletic coaching. Our graduate certificate and master's program can be started at any time, either the summer, fall, or spring. All of our classes have the word coach or coaching in them, and they're taught by coaches for coaches.
The types of classes that we offer focus on the athlete as a whole person. We focus on the theory and practice, the research, the helping skills, even some of the mental performance behind, what it goes into being an athlete. I came to FSU Coach because I truly believed in the mission and the purpose of the program.
I think I have my dream job being a head coach at Florida State, but I know there's always more ways that I can help my athletes and better prepare as a coach. So I thought joining this master's program would help me learn different ways to attack my job. If you're interested in going into coaching or joining the FSU Coach program, I would just say don't even think about it and do it.
And we're back live with Dylan Bennett. Thanks again for joining us today, Dylan. You're a track and field coach. I'm curious how you balance the field part because most track and field coaches tend to be track coaches of some kind, or cross countries, or the running portion rather than the throwing or jumping portion. How have you, well, first, am I right in that assumption? And then second, how do you cater to two very different disciplines within the same sport?
Sure. I'd say partially right. In the fact that there's most track and field coaches. I'm actually in the aspect. I'm a field coach.
Okay.
I coach the jumps specifically. And a lot of the coaches that I've actually worked with as far as head coaches were field coaches to start, and then the track aspect came later. Um, I I have a great staff that helps support me in that light. And not every university, especially at the Division III level, gives you that opportunity to hire a staff of a certain size. And I was given essentially the the spiel, hey, hire who you think is right for the job. And there wasn't a lot of hands in the pot, kind of going through this process with me, making sure, oh well, they want to fit X, Y, and Z on this in this certain light for the university. It's hire who you think is going to be best for your program. So I was able to hire a handful of assistants that have been tremendous so far, and they've also helped in that recruiting sense. And that's one of the requirements that I have as a head coach is, are you gonna help me recruiting? And that's a big part of what we do is the recruiting. And recruiting takes up probably, I'd say, about 75 to 80% of what we do every day. And especially as me as a head coach, the amount of time that I see on the track is maybe 10 to 5% of my job is actually going out and coaching the sport. A lot of it is done doing the administrative stuff, the budgeting, the recruiting, the exposure of the university, going to different events, things like that. So hiring a staff that is going to support you on the track and in the field is probably the biggest thing for us.
We get into coaching because we love working with athletes. We love seeing the improvement. We love development, relationships, etc. And I'm just going to read back what you just quoted. Recruiting is 70% of my job. I may be paraphrasing here. The actual coaching may be 10% of my job.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a frustration for you that you spend so much time doing the day-to-day grind, the managerial aspects of this?
No, honestly, I really enjoy it. You get a lot of exposure to different culture, different lifestyles. You get to meet some very interesting people, and you get to hear a lot of different people's stories of how they maybe got into the sport, what they're looking for out of a college experience, what their high school experience has been like. And that part is where I take a lot of pride is, we're able to kind of go out and give people an opportunity to, grow themselves, and things like that. So I honestly am excited when I can go out and meet high school students and meet their coaches and meet their parents and their family, just to kind of see where they come from and how I can help them. As far as like recruiting goes, yeah, again, it takes about 70% of my day, but I feel rewarded when I get to talk to a student and hear what they're looking for and how I can help them achieve it.
Well said. Thinking in terms of what you do on a day-to-day basis, the coaching life is not all wonderful. And I think we can both agree on that. I'm just curious, what are some of the challenges that you face in the position that you have that maybe others just wouldn't know about or wouldn't be aware of?
Sure. One of the biggest ones we're facing right now is the NCAA has mandates for minimum qualifications to have an NCAA roster.
Well, out of curiosity, what is that minimum?
Sure. For cross country, it's 5 men to create a men's team and 5 women for a women's team, and then once you get to the track and field side, it's 10 and 10. Again, men and women. And making sure they compete in this X amount of events, and that would be in our current cross country season, it's you have to have 5 people competing in 5 meets. So we put on the schedule an extra couple of meets just in case of injuries and things like that. We may not be NCAA compliant. But that's where the challenge lies right now, and that's a big frustration for us. And that's not necessarily the fault of anybody right now. It's we're trying to broaden our roster, and we have to embrace those challenges. Does it keep me up at night sometimes? Of course. And that's another thing, is the amount of sleep and the amount of outside time you have. As a West Virginia alum, I don't get to watch my Mountaineers as much as I want to. But I know that I'm building a special program here, and when eventually we get to hoist that conference championship trophy, it'll make all those hours worth it.
Let's say theoretically you do fall under, for whatever reason, season-ending injury. How do you fix that? Is that you go to the student body and hope somebody has some legs and lungs and can help you out?
Essentially, yeah. It's kind of going to the well. Is what we've come to name the term. Is we go to the well. We petition the student body. The first week on campus here, I was out at campus events with a sign-up sheet, getting everybody's emails that I could, and emailing them, this is what we're looking for, this is what we're trying to build, and offering people, roster spots. We're not capped at roster spots. So, trying to fix those challenges. And that's one way we do it. At certain times, it may not be the most luxurious thing, but, it's what we got to do to make sure our team, and these students and these student athletes get the opportunity and things that they deserve. It's not their choice in certain circumstances that we're under roster levels, but we want to give them the experience that they came here for. So we're going to go out and try our best to make sure they get it.
You mentioned the sleepless nights, etc. How do you balance, or can you balance, your life as a coach?
That was one of the biggest challenges when I first started as an assistant, because this is what I wanted to do full time. This is when I graduated. I knew I wanted to be a coach, so I put 110% into it. There was days, nights where I didn't sleep at all, because I'm out here trying to prove myself on the recruiting trail. I'm trying to prove myself as far as training style goes, and different events. Finding that balance is different for everybody. For me, this is what I've wanted. This is the lifestyle I wanted. So I put in a little bit more effort than some others may. As far as, at night, I'm willing to answer emails pretty much whenever. I do scouting at night. It's all based on what your lifestyle is and how much you're willing to put into it. And finding where it's healthy and unhealthy. I knew it was a little unhealthy for me when I would have to sleep in my car in the parking lot at 2:00 in the morning, because I'm trying to make sure I had enough recruits. That's when it was like, kind of, hey, take a step back, make sure we're getting that full 8 hours, at least, that kind of stuff.
Now, just as we get near to close, think a little bit about your career, your experiences, and translate them into coaches across sports, whether it be high school or college or wherever. Is there any advice you can offer to other coaches based on your own personal experiences?
If this is your passion, give it your all. Your students will know when you're not fully there, mentally, physically, and whatnot. If you can't give them your all, don't try to BS them. Don't try to tell them you are when you clearly aren't. And try to have as much fun with it as you can. It is a stressful job most days, but if you can find some time to have a little bit of fun with it, and joke around and have a staff that supports you, look for that kind of stuff. And part of that is creating that culture. If you create the culture that you want to have, so make sure you look within yourself when you create that culture, because people will be attracted to that positivity like that.
If somebody does want to reach out to you watching the show later, or maybe listening to our podcast, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can just shoot me an email. It's my Gwinnett Mercy email. I'd be more than happy to help anybody out any sort of way. If it takes a couple minutes for me to get back to you, I apologize, but I will gladly do that. I want coaches to continue to come into this profession. I want good people here. I want to, make those connections. And if any way I can help, I will gladly do that for you.
Awesome. And for those listening to the podcast, it's Bennett, BENNETT.D at gmercyu.edu. Well, Dylan, thanks so much for joining us today. And I do hope people reach out and do ask questions of you. Just a reminder, everybody, every 1 or 2 weeks, we try to do an interview with a special guest, somebody who's working and living in the world of sports. So be sure to subscribe where you're watching or listening. But on behalf of myself, Tim Baghurst, Dylan Bennett, thanks so much for watching.